The thing that you find about startups is very few of them actually focus on the experience. They're experts in product. They understand the type of customer, but bringing the two of them together is actually one of the hardest things to do. He's maxed out on search because a lot of the people that you're trying to target, they're not searching on Google. They're talking to their buddy. A lot of founders have a really hard time with. They have these great ideas. They have these amazing products and they do solve a pain point. They have a really hard time getting on video. When AI first started, just use it to write. We don't need copywriters. It's a great tool to use to help start things. It's not going to be able to create kick butt brand name. It's not going to be able to come up with the tagline. It was like, wow. When it's Sunday night, you don't want to get up and go to work the next day. It makes you say to yourself, okay, am I doing what I really want to be doing?
Hi everyone, welcome to Authority Architects. Today we have Sheila Ulrey joining us, marketing and operations expert who worked at L'Oreal, Disney, and Aveda. Then she worked with PE-backed companies and is now a fractional president and CMO. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sheila. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hop into it. Today, what we'd really like to discuss just to start off is just a very brief background. I know you have an expansive array of different things, but on how you really built your authority in your space. Like, how does one go from going to L'Oreal to Disney to Aveda to then now being a fractional president and CMO where people actually trust you with their brands? I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm very blessed. I've had a great career, and I wouldn't even call it a career. I'd call it a journey because it's just been there's just been turns and roads and everything along the way. And, the first part of my career, I was very lucky. I worked for very big companies who classically trained me in the world of marketing and, had the opportunity to learn from some of the best, whether it was, L'Oreal and we, debated for hours over a shade of green, or Disney, where it was all about, is something integrated? Is it integrated enough? Is the storytelling there? And then took all of that and took the road towards private equity and started working in the franchising, world with PE-backed companies. And I have to say, it was probably one of the best things I ever did because I'm just a very social person. And so for me, going into franchising was a great thing because I love working with people. And working for a PE-backed company is just so different than working for publicly traded companies. But I took the expertise of what I'd been trained on and then brought it into this whole other world where they needed it, where they needed people who were experts in their field and understood, how the right positioning statement could get written, how to write the right playbook, etc. So,
Yeah.
and now I'm actually doing what I love, which is fractional work, and because there's always something new, but at the end of the day, I'm taking everything that I learned through the years on this journey and applying it to up and coming companies and brands.
Sheila, you mentioned deliberating over a shade of green, having painted a few rooms in my house. I know that debate, obviously on a much, much smaller scale, probably than what you're talking about, but the trip to Lowe's with the swatches, oh man, you never feel like you got the right choice. But we've had executives from Disney on the program before, and we've worked with Disney as a client ourselves. And one of the things that struck us in those conversations before is they're, as a company, focus on storytelling. Everything is storytelling. One of our guests was talking about how when they went to the parks, even the person selling hot dogs is part of this story that is giving the people a brand experience. Did you experience that when you had your time there and with some of your other roles as well? Just because storytelling is so vital to what we do, I'm curious what your relationship with that concept is.
Yeah, every division within Disney has that, and it's actually called integration. And is every part of everything that you're doing, whether it's the way a character is drawn, to the colors that you use on a packaging, to the actual, even the positioning statement, say if you're using for a product, is it integrated enough to tell the story? And you take, and honestly, I've taken that as one of the things I took from Disney and apply now throughout my career. And even most recently, I'm working on a startup. It's in a medical field, in the dental industry actually. And I was experiencing the service the other day. And as I was experiencing it, all I can think of was, how do we make this a fully immersive experience and not just somebody coming into a clinic and, getting a treatment, etc. But how do you make it so that they would walk out telling the story of their experience in that chair? And
Yeah.
so that's a little bit of what I'm even working on with them now.
Well, that's so interesting that you mentioned that in terms of the application, because I think one of the things that we experience, we work with Fortune 100, 500 companies, but then we're also working with smaller and mid-market companies as well. And we're always like, do the concepts that these huge brand players actually have relevance to these smaller players that are just trying to make it in their niche? And that's a perfect example what you just said of like how, like what is the customer experience? Are they everything that you're doing, from answering the phone, sending an email, the colors on your signage, is like part of your brand experience to the customer. And so it's cool to be able to take that application and apply it in this entirely different field. Have you seen that like across all these different brands that you're working with in this phase of your career?
Yeah, I think that the thing that you find about, that at least I have found about startups, is very few of them actually focus on the experience. They are experts in what they do, they're experts in product, they understand the type of customer that they need to bring in, but where they need a lot of the help is, and most recently I found this with a couple of brands I'm working with, is the connection of what their mission is. So a lot of these startups come about because there's a mission, and they have this mission, and they understand their mission and know what they want to do, and then they have this product. But bringing the two of them together is actually the one of the hardest things to do,
Yeah.
because the founder wants to talk about the mission. The venture capitalist only cares, what is this product and how much is it going to make for me? But yet at the same, but at the end of the day, the customer's got to understand, one, what is the product, and what problem is it going to solve for me? Why do I need this product?
Well, I have a question for you, Sheila, which is when we focus on, okay, president and CMO, right? So those are two things that might be connected. Marketing is now connected to just being an executive in general than I feel like it used to be. But what are the main channels of outreach that you're seeing be successful today? We saw like cold email was a really successful channel for a long time. Now cold email sort of stalling out. Are you doing a lot of content marketing? We obviously see a lot of value in content marketing, having conversations with people. Are you seeing like paid ads like Google? There's GEO in the world now instead of just SEO. Like, what are you seeing for the brands that you're working with as the top channels that are of value?
So I would say for a lot of the startups that I'm working with, it's social. It's all about creating the community. If you can create the community and get the community involved, get the community commenting, getting the community sharing, especially in the service industry where you've got multi units and you're selling a service, you want 30% of your customers referring other people in. And so it's all about building that local community. It's kind of going back to to the way it was a long, long time ago, where you built a brand up from the bottom. But even a lot of the big brands, if they don't have the community aspect of it, it's hard. I was having coffee the other day with a colleague that we've worked together in the past, and he's in a med spa startup. And we were talking about how, yes, he's got Google ads, but he's maxed out on search. And I was like, yeah, I mean, because a lot of the people that you're trying to target, they're not searching on Google. They're
Mhm.
talking to their buddies. They're, at some event and they see it, or even, a lot of times it's the wife or the girlfriend
Mm,
that's,
yeah.
doing the research for them. So that's why community is so important.
How do you go about, I mean, I guess that's the million dollar question, but like how do you go about building that? I mean, I would imagine that like the where we touch that for clients is content is king, like creating content that helps build that enthusiasm. But when resources are limited or when your audience is hard to reach, like what methods have you seen are good to build that community?
So at the end of the day, I mean, since a lot of the community is built via social, it's still about being authentic. So you don't have to have necessarily, fully produced videos. You can do a lot of that content on your own in little snippets about, everything from your mission and who you stand for to the pain points of the customers. But
Mm,
it's the constant, it is all about making sure that you're just constantly out there and you're constantly sharing the things that matter about the brand with the community. And at the end of the day, even when you're a startup and you're a small business, it is all about networking.
yeah.
It is all about still having conversations with people and telling people about what you do. And it's actually one of the things that I find that a lot of founders have a really hard time with, is they have these great ideas, they have these amazing products, and they do solve a pain point, but they have a really hard time putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
They have a really hard time getting on video.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've sat there in sessions with I can name at least two founders where I'm like, all right, here's your plan for the week. This is what I want you to do. It's a 15-second video. Just do it. And
Yeah.
it is hard for them. And it does take a very special kind of founder to actually go out there and do it. I mean, a lot of them, I give them credit, they're humble, but it's so necessary in order to build the brand, especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah. And today, especially, I mean, if you talk 15 years ago, it wasn't as important, but today it's like, I mean, you look at all these celebrity brands that have launched, and it's not because, like, oh, The Rock had a revolutionary idea. Let's do tequila, Terramania. It's like The Rock, everyone knows The Rock's face, and someone else probably had a tequila brand and came to The Rock and they partnered up, and then it's like, they do an equity split, but no one even knows the other person's name. It's like everyone knows The Rock's name. So it's so true. Like, how do you get yourself in front? Like Alex Hormozy, everyone knows Alex Hormozy is an entrepreneur, or Gary Vaynerchuk, or Grant Cardone, or like we were what, Daniela Bernstein, or Danielle or Daniela. I'm not recalling her name quite yet, or like Melissa Wood Health. There's all these people that like people know their names, and then their brand's attached to their name. So they're
Yeah.
buying like from the person. So I point being I completely
Oh yeah, they're my partners in crime, and if I put them in the basement, they'll bark the whole time, and so they have to stay there. Otherwise, it'll go crazy. So thank you
All
for
good.
being
All
patient and
good.
all that.
of course.
No, all good. I was just going to add to what Michael was saying. I mean, you mentioned the authenticity, Sheila, and you mentioned it doesn't. The most important thing is the consistency, like the production quality. I mean, obviously, we pride ourselves on that for our clients, but beyond anything else, it's just get in front of the camera, have conversations, create educational content, talk about the brand mission. And that's one of the reasons why podcasting we find is so valuable, both for ourselves and for our clients, because it's just a way to keep accountable to having this type of dialogue and to outputting content that actually gets to the core of the brand as opposed to something that might feel stodgy and overproduced and stock footage laden kind of thing. Like this type of format allows for that environment where you're sharing your authentic vision, which I think is really powerful.
And I would also add that, particularly for younger millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that's what they believe in. They want that true, authentic, because then they believe it's real. I think they've been so exposed for so long on social media to some of the more overproduced
Hmm.
product and some of the content that's out there. I mean, it's still really good even when it is produced. Like I follow this one content creator on Instagram and it's AI produced talking dogs, but I love it. Like I laugh my butt off at it. And that's okay. Like there's still a world for that. But yet I think when you are trying to sell a mission, something that is going to solve that problem for you, particularly you're more credible when it comes from the person who created it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. We were actually having a conversation this morning, Stephen and I, about AI in general, and I feel like there was like the AI hype train, and then all of a sudden you're hearing less and less about AI. And I know there's all the AI stuff that's going on in the background, but specifically around like marketing and like video and stuff like that, I feel like the AI utilization is not going to be going up significantly. It's sort of like is where it is because people want to see real people. They're connecting with like a real person or a celebrity or something like that. Like part of the art of watching a movie is watching someone do the performance. It's not that's like the beauty of it. So like AI would remove that whole part of it, which would really remove the purpose of even watching it. And then the other thing is the LLMs are sort of tapping out in terms of the ideas that they're able to generate. It's like, they're not getting a lot of new from where I was using ChatGPT a year ago to where it is today. It's like ChatGPT is marginally better. Sometimes, depending on what I'm using it for, it's even worse because it's just getting more information from itself. It's like
Yeah.
sort of like a feedback loop. And it makes a lot of mistakes. I've been shocked. Claude, ChatGPT, I've been Gemini. They all make a ton of mistakes when you ask them something very specific, which has been surprising. And you ask them to cite things, it's citing the wrong links a lot of times. You got to be careful with that stuff. So I really think authenticity is this next phase where we're getting a lot of slop, a lot of junk out. And like that's like 85-90% of the internet's going to be like junk in a few years. And then we've got like, the real stuff, and the real stuff's going to be the stuff that cuts through the noise 100%.
Oh
So
yeah, I think also because a lot of the stuff when it's authentic, it's what people want. Like they see themselves in being in that authentic role. And and to your point, I just have to this funny story of, my husband is an Instagram addict. Like he's a junkie. And when AI first started, he would say, "Hey, look at this." And I'd say, "Honey, that's AI. It's not real."
Yeah,
He's like, "What? What do you
yeah.
mean?" Like now he can tell the difference. But in the very beginning, I had to teach him like what was the real stuff and what was not real.
Well, Michael,
yeah.
to your point about the mistakes, I mean, Sheila, my wife and I, we were in Portugal and we were figuring out hikes to do or like activities to do, and there was this one castle on a hilltop that we wanted to see, and we were trying to figure out the transportation to get there, and we asked ChatGPT, how far is it? Like, is it going to be blah, blah, blah? Both Google Maps and ChatGPT were like, yeah, it's only a half-hour hike. They failed to mention that you're climbing like thousands of feet of elevation. And so we got like 10 minutes in and we're like, this is not like why would ChatGPT think that a normal person would be able to do that? Like, it's just not feasible. And I'm thinking, how many mistakes am I just accepting this like are just factual that I don't know the outcomes to? And I think it's important to note like AI is an important tool as part of our workflows, back end workflows, summarizing things, getting head starts on things, even in a generative capacity, for certain clips or images that we need to create things. But it all has to be based on like real data, and like it all has to be carrying the true authentic vision for the holistic thing that you're creating. I think where it gets out of control is when you just let it run wild and like hit start and it just does its thing.
Oh yeah, and to your point, I experience the same thing. So I use several LLMs to do different things. Like I personally love Perplexity for facts. I find that Perplexity gets the facts the best.
Yeah.
And I use Gemini for creativity, and I use Sora when I need to do something creative as well. But I think to your point, it's using it as a tool and then piecing it together, but
Yeah.
not letting it just develop the whole thing.
Yeah.
You still, I was talking with my business partner this morning on the phone, and I was working on a document last night, and I was having, one of the LLMs help me create the document. At the end of the day, had I not thought through, had I not took a step back and said, okay, what's missing from this? It would have never picked it up. And so I had to
Yeah.
go back
Yeah.
multiple times and say, and what about this? And how would you look at this? And a lot of times it inspires me to think even more. But I think to me that is they're great productivity tools, but to your point, it's not the whole package. You still need other things, including the human side of it, to add that creative piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know
100%.
what's funny? I'm not going to name this client by name. Stephen will know exactly who I'm talking about. We have a client who loves AI, and they always try to integrate AI into the workflow, which has been great in some scenarios, but in a lot of scenarios, it actually creates more work for our
Yeah.
team and leads to a slightly worse result. So it's like from that, like it's like AI is not always the end, like end all be all. Like
Yeah.
sometimes just a human doing the work is less than AI being in the middle of it. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of these big companies and consulting groups and stuff are starting to see that too. Like AI has its place in the funnel, but it's a piece of the funnel. It's not the whole. I don't believe in AGI or any of that stuff's coming anytime soon. I really don't. And, the stocks are just hyped up to no end. So we'll see how that all turns out. My prediction is that they're going to not be doing as well in a few years, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm putting my foot in my mouth. So,
I mean, have you guys been hearing? So I've heard it actually a couple of times now, more than a couple of times. I would say multiple times in the last month. One was from the head of global recruiting at a major tech company. Another one was somebody who is, the leading salesperson for a industrial company, and just random conversations. And, you get on these conversations about AI, and particularly AI, as it relates to higher level work. And all of them, and it's interesting. The comment that keeps coming out of them is, in about it's just settling itself out right now. In about a year, it'll all work its way through, and we'll get over this crazy hump that we're in of this AI frenzy. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been hearing the same thing, but I've
Yeah.
I've started to pick up on that trend.
Well,
yeah.
I have as well. I mean, I think that there's always different schools of thought and people that are, like Michael is saying, are a client that's really bullish on it. But I have been hearing that perspective too. I almost liken it to the 80/20 rule about, the you can picking up if you spill Legos on the floor and you try to pick up a bunch of Legos with your arms, you can get about 80% of them with that one first grouping of your arms. But then the remaining pieces that you have to individually pick up is going to take you as much time, like the most amount of time, to pick up all those individual pieces. And I liken that to a lot of the processes that AI makes easier. It gets you about 80% of the way there, but to get that final 20% right is gonna take the most amount of work anyway. And people have this perception, especially in the film and video advertising industry. Oh my gosh, Snapchat can like change your face into a celebrity's face. Like that's so cool. Like it doesn't look totally real, but like it's pretty darn good. Why can't feature films do that better? Well, it's because the final 20% of making it look totally real is like
Yep.
by far the hardest part. Like, so there's this perception that because AI can get us 80% of the way there, getting the final 20%, that's just kind of the stuff that's going to need to sort itself out and be refined. But like that is the hardest human driven part
And
of
the
the
last
process.
the last 3% is or 5% or even 1% is the stuff where it separates someone who's good versus someone who's really
Yeah,
good. So
yeah.
like AI is just mediocre at
Yes.
best. Like
Like the uncanny valley thing with, making actors look younger or replacing a stunt double with the A-list actor and stuff. That is stuff that like the visual effects and film industry has been working through for like decades, and people see Snapchat can like just do a quick swap, and like why can't the film? It's like, well, because we've been able to do the quick swap that gets it 80% of the way there for like 20 years. It's like the hard minutia that's actually the hardest, like It's actually the hardest part. Anyway, this is where I get animated because I hear these, oh, like, why can't people do it? It's like, because it's hard. Like, that's why.
And you still have a body part that doesn't belong where it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and coming
Exactly.
out of an ear or something. It just,
Yeah.
it
Exactly.
doesn't. And the thing I've noticed is I heard a lot for when AI first started, this is where I go on a tangent, is, oh, you can just use it to write. Just use it to write. We don't need copywriters, you can use it to write. Well, it's a great tool to kick off. It's a great tool to use to help start things. At the end of the day, it's not going to be able to create that really like kick butt brand name. It's not going to be able to come up with a tagline that just was like, wow. Like it's a great starting process, but you still need that human creativity to create that truly
Yeah.
creative, piece that makes everybody just go, that just blows their minds. It's not there yet at all.
Well, knowing that we don't have that much time left, Sheila, I want to ask one or two other questions. I guess what is a perspective that you had entering your career? It can be AI related. I mean, obviously AI is more recent, but entering your career that either in that first half that you described or more recently has shifted, like something changed. You're like, wow, that is not what I know to be true from what I believed when I started.
That's a really good question. So I'm going to probably go on a path that is a little bit more on the philosophical side. And, when I first started off in my career, I was so passionate about marketing. I was so passionate about the beauty industry. I actually loved working at L'Oreal and working for the French, and it was great and it was fantastic. And I've been so lucky to work for the companies that I've worked for. But as I went on in my career, I began to realize that when it's Sunday night and you don't want to get up and go to work the next day, it makes you say to yourself, okay, am I doing what I really want to be doing? And that's what I say to when I talk to people who are coming up in their careers now, or what are they going to do with their career and etc. Is do what's going to make you get up in the morning. And if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, then down a path that allows you to feed that spirit. If you are a detail oriented person, then make sure that you're in a career that isn't, overly creative, that will drive you crazy. Like you've got to be able to find what you love. And if you're doing what you love, then you will show up as your true authentic self.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most important thing, that I've at least learned, from the beginning to where I am now in my career.
That's great because my next question was going to be what advice do you have for people that are making their way through marketing careers? And you tied them both together in one answer. But anything else, Sheila, before we adjourn here? We've so enjoyed the opportunity to listen to you and your opinions on these different topics. But anything else that you want to share or before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, I'd say is like it's an interesting place in the world of marketing and business right now in general. And it will be interesting, as we talked about, to see where AI takes us. And, interesting also how, and maybe it's just because of the world I'm in right now, but just how many startups are happening in the world today. And how we've got an up and coming generation that is very much interested in that than even going into traditional corporate roles. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sheila. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, awesome.